U-Tool-izing. Again, we are so grateful to have you here with us today. And I am super grateful to my co-host, Angie, and Michelle Killian, who's the grant monitor on the Sustainable California Libraries Project. I'm sure they're here somewhere, haven't had a chance to look at all the participants. I'm also extremely grateful for all of the panelists that are sharing with us today, who are all volunteers, 100%, and agreed to take time out of their busy schedule to share with us today. So with that, may we please go to the next slide. So first of all, I just wanted to give us a little background, and I'm going to do that fairly quickly. We're doing something important today because we are talking about climate change and sustainability. And I love this quote from Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, who's a climate scientist and an excellent communicator. If no one does anything unless it feels important, and if no one's talking about it, how important can it be? So one of the things that I think our library programs and our community organizations and us, what we're doing right now is an important thing. We're talking about climate, we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about solutions, where we've made progress and where we still have work to do. There are some interesting statistics. If you start looking at solutions, we have the solutions. We're making progress with solar and wind and electric vehicles and environmental justice, but we still have a lot of work to do. I wanted to include the little quote from Octavia Butler at the bottom of the summit page in here. It's, we don't have to wait for anything at all. We have to start. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to do it all, but we have to do something. And you're going to hear today from 11 different folks who are doing something and on much different scales. We are so motivated by what other people do and what we see people doing. So the more we talk about it, the more we see what other libraries and communities are doing, the better we are going to be at solving the challenges that are in front of us. So be visible, be vocal, be intentional, and start local. You can make really impactful change at the local level, and make sure to share your solutions and radical hope. Next slide, please. One thing is you want to make sure that when you're chatting, you have selected everyone. So you're not only chatting to the panelist, if that option is there for you. Everyone here would like to hear what you have to say. If you have a moment and you feel comfortable, again, chat will not be recorded. If you could share in chat what inspired you to join us here today. So whether that was your supervisor asked you to attend, you're a current grantee, or you just wanted to learn a little bit more, if you take a moment and share with us what inspired you to join us here today. Throughout the call, we'd love to know your name if you feel like sharing it, who you're with as far as a library or an organization, and then if you have ever been a Sustainable California Libraries grantee, either past, current, or possibly future if you're considering it. In a few moments, I'll also share some additional links into chat. But the main thing that I want to point out right now is there's a main page which you can find everything off of. There's a resources page with lots of information, probably too much information. And then last, we've added an open listserv, and that's at the bottom of the resources page, and I'll highlight that a little bit later. And if I could have the next slide, please. Do you want to keep us on time? Here's where we're headed today. I will post the link to the agenda in chat. We're going to start off with an aspirational and inspirational share from Maria talking about the Nature Library. And right on time, I am going to pass the baton over to Maria, who's going to share with us. If you have questions or comments, do feel free to share those in chat. I will moderate chat at the end of the conversation, and then we'll switch over to the next presenter. So with that, I'm going to ask for Maria to start her share. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thanks, Juliana. I am really honored to be here with you all. I just want to make sure you can hear me and see my screen. Can y'all hear me okay?
We can, and yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, hello again. I'm honored to be here. I'm joining you from Colorado, actually. So my name is Maria Mayo-Peaseley, and I'm a branch manager at Anythink Libraries here in Adams County. I'm currently managing our flagship branch, Anythink Wright Farms, But then once it opens, I will be managing Anythink Nature Library, which we're going to be talking about today. So that's why I have the honor of sharing this information with you all today. So a little bit about Anythink before we jump in. We are the public library district serving Adams County. Our mission is we open doors for curious minds, and we do that in our communities, which is a mix of suburban and rural communities north and east of Denver. We focus our work on people and on providing experiences that spark curiosity and joy. So today I'm hoping to share with you an overview of a new project we're really proud of. We're going to talk about our vision for this new library, some of the inspirations that brought us through the design process, and then I'm excited to actually be able to show you all some renderings today as well. So what is Anythink Nature Library at a glance? We had the opportunity to partner with the city of Thornton, which is one of our most rapidly growing cities in Adams County, to build a 35,000 square foot library surrounded by 140 acres of open space. It's a pretty unique experience. Not many libraries have that big of a backyard. So something I'm pumped about is the opportunity to provide programming, not just in and around the library itself, but on the entire 140 acres. So Anythink will design and operate the library itself, while the city will be responsible for the open space and its trail system. The Nature Library is essentially a public library devoted to nature-based learning and exploration through spaces, collections, and accompanying experiences and programming. This work is really exciting in that it really just allows us to expand on work already being done around environmental learning throughout our district at this time. Our vision for the project is to help people find their place in nature. At Anythink, we talk a lot about meeting our customers where they are when they walk through the doors. And so something that has carried us through is thinking about how do we meet our customers where they are in their relationship to the natural world? How do we build experiences that serve as access points for our community to see themselves as part of the fabric of nature? And why libraries? I love that I'm speaking to like the exact right crowd right now. I think we all resonate with this concept of breaking down barriers, right? It's something we're really good about in libraries. As safe, trusted, and beloved institutions in our communities, I believe, are perfectly poised to provide these access points, these moments of spark or connection that help our community feel more connected to nature in maybe a way they'd never thought about before. I like to give the example of like maybe it's a caregiver coming in and all they have time for that day is to just check out a book on bugs because that's what their kid's doing a school project on that day. But then maybe a few weeks later they stumble in and they come across a flyer for a really cool program hosted by a local beekeeper. And then maybe it could be weeks, it could be months, but then somehow they're back and they're helping us plant a pollinator garden for our community. So I think each of these are examples of sorry, my phone's ringing. Each of these are examples of access points or pieces of that journey towards environmental kinship and learning what does that relationship mean to me personally. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the inspirations for the project, and I won't talk your ear off, but I think this is really important. One of the most influential bits of feedback we got was from our community themselves. So we transformed what was just kind of a boring meeting room space in our library into what we called the Dream and Design Studio. So this was a space that we actually transformed to mirror the site of the project, which is a plains landscape. So it looked like a plains landscape. It even smelled like a plains landscape. And we had the opportunity for our community to come in and create these dioramas that responded to prompts that we gave them. So questions like, what does environmental stewardship mean to you? Or how do you feel boundless in nature? And our community responded with great enthusiasm. We had over 180 designs submitted, and we were able to showcase those and then bring our architects in to create criteria based around the creations of our community. So this was a really interesting and different way to get ideas on what it means for our community to find themselves in the natural world. Another important influence for us has been our advisory council, which is made up of representatives from Indigenous tribes in our area. This group really held us accountable throughout the design process, asking us questions like, how are we honoring the land through this process? Are we moving in a good way? And how, how do we see Indigenous youth connecting with this project? So I think you'll see some of that impact in the design itself. And last but not least, we early in the design process, we became aware of a resource meant for early childhood educators called the Environmental Kinship Guide. And I'm going to share this with you on the chat in a little bit. This model introduces a new way of thinking about how a variety of experiences can build relationship or kinship between humans and nature. So I don't want to go into too much detail, but I do want to just give you an overview because this has been just so inspiring for us throughout the process. So learning about nature means observing and studying the natural world. So I think about like cloud observation programs or learning to identify plant families. Learning in nature centers on the tactile experience of getting into nature. So perhaps playing in a mud kitchen, snowshoeing, or cooking some garden fresh veggies. With is all about the spiritual, deeper connection. So I think about an outdoor meditation program or a poetry workshop. And finally, learning for nature is that point at which we ask what we have to offer in return. So this is your neighborhood cleanup, discussion on local efforts to combat climate change. We were so inspired by these ideas that we decided to design the building and outdoor areas around these 4 learning modes, creating spaces that could accommodate each of these experiences in really meaningful ways. So for instance, in the about area, we have an art and science lab that's actually indoor-outdoor. In the in area, we've got boulders that you can climb on that promote agency and risk-taking, as well as outdoor adventure gear available for checkout. In the with area, we've designed big open windows with views of prairie and sky, promoting reflection and connection with the land. And then we really believe learning for nature should happen anywhere and everywhere in this building. But something we're really excited about is the opportunity to build an office that will be devoted to partner organizations who could come in and actually host temporary residency at the Nature Library to spread their message and provide programming to the public. So I think about organizations like Leave No Trace or Generation Wild coming in and getting to spend some time with our community. So after all this talk of inspiration, I'm excited to share some details with you all. So this is just at a glance. We are at 33,000 square feet with a 15-acre surrounding property that the library is managing. But again, there's that 140 acres of open lands that surround the building. Construction is scheduled, y'all cross your fingers for me, in August of 2024, with opening scheduled for mid-2026. And then cost of construction currently is at $43.4 million. Here is a broader view of the front doors. That column that you see, the feature column, is meant to mimic the cottonwood trees that are native to our site. And then you get a glimpse of some of these really cool gardens that are all around the library. I threw this slide in to show you all that something that's been really important is the idea that this building really shouldn't feel like it's poised on top of the land, but should feel like it's coming out of the land. And so that's been an important design aspect for us. So you can just barely glimpse the roof of the building from many viewpoints around the property. Here's a bird's eye view. So you get a glimpse of the forms that are featured in the design. The design itself of the building is called Windswept and is inspired by blades of grass blowing in the wind. You can see to the northeast of the building, there's a trail system that connects to the library, and then that connects to the rest of the site, as well as to a regional bike trail. And then west of the building, there's a loop trail that connects back to the library itself. And then just south of the parking lot, there's a nice view of our community garden plots that we'll have on site. The gardens surrounding, specifically in the front of the library, are meant to mimic a botanic gardens. So this is a passive learning experience to identify plant families as well as ecosystems where plants thrive. This is the outdoor aspect of our indoor-outdoor art and science lab. So this is a space devoted to messy play, as well as scientific experimentation. So we actually have a drain in the middle of the floor in this patio very intentionally to be able to hose this thing off whenever we need to. This is a view from that Western Loop Trail. This is our talking circle, which was inspired by our advisory council, who felt it was important that there be some kind of round outdoor space intended for storytelling, as well as a nod to the plants that are native and sacred to Indigenous tribes in our area. This is our trailhead that connects to the rest of the open lands. This is our learning garden. As opposed to our community garden plots, this will be reserved for library programming. Something I'm really excited about is the opportunity to bring in local master gardeners for intergenerational programming within our learning garden. And as we get into the interior renderings, I just want to note that none of these are quite final. We're still doing furniture, fixtures, all of that. And we do need shelves somewhere in this library. So currently, you're seeing a view of that prairie and sky. This is the learning with nature area that's really meant for reflection, contemplation, and kind of quieter programming. This is a central courtyard in the space that's open to the sky. This, to me, metaphorically, is that center of the environmental kinship knot. So it's the place where the 4 learning modes kind of come together and connect. This is a view from the front door. We've got these amazing solar tubes in the ceiling, as well as a cafe straight ahead. And then this space is designed to be super flexible. So everything that is shelved here along this corridor will be on casters and can be moved away for large scale programming. And then I just wanted to express a little bit of gratitude to the land itself. This is a really special place that we had the opportunity to build on, and truly showcases just the bounty and beauty of the Colorado Plains landscape. So something that our community really asked for is that this design be reminiscent of the plains and not of like the Rocky Mountains, because that's not our community's ecosystem. And so this is just a slide to show you what natural beauty we have to work with, and we're very, very fortunate. This is a photo of a future visitor to Anythink Nature Library, hanging out in the learning garden, planting some seeds. To wrap up today, I wanted to share a quote with you all that I've kept coming back to throughout our work on this project. Researcher David Sobel writes, "If we want children to flourish, to become truly empowered, then let us allow them to love the earth before we ask them to save it." I think in libraries, we have a unique opportunity to be that safe space for our community to fall in love with nature, and in doing so, find themselves within that greater fabric of the natural world. And that is all I have for you all. Thank you so much for your time. And are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Maria. And if there are questions, feel free to either pop those into chat. Questions, comments, appreciation, trying to soak it all in. I previewed these slides, and it is wonderful. It is super inspiring, and I'm so excited that you started off our summit here today. I really appreciate your presentation. There is a question coming in from Amber. What was your design development timeline?
Yeah, so we had some setbacks. So we started design in 2020, I would say July of 2022. And since then, we basically had to make huge revisions because of current cost of materials. And so we had some setbacks. But yeah, we started in July of 22, envisioning and really concepting this library. And but it really wasn't until the last year that we were like, let's go. We've got the budget and we've got it under control.
And I just have to say, thank you so much. I know you're outside of California, but I really, once I saw this concept, I was like, we have to have them share. This is so awesome. The way you did the community engagement, the development, and the design. There's lots of love going on in the chat. And Dorothy does have a little quick question, which we have a few more moments for questions. Can you expand on your co-design experience with the local tribe?
Yeah, it was pretty remarkable. We started with outreach to just leaders in the Indigenous community in our area, and we hired a facilitator to support those initial conversations, which I would definitely recommend. That really helps, honestly, like break the ice, build trust, and build commitment to the project. And so we very much started with like, how do we work together? What do those guidelines for our group conversations look like? And we just really came back and back and back to humility and to willingness to start over if we needed to, which we definitely did. There were several conversations that guided us to think about things in a completely new way, and that have made the project better.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's a lot of comments, and I think a lot of people are now searching what's going on in Colorado. Tell me more. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so we have another minute or two if we need it here for questions. And then while we're finishing up on these questions, Maria, could you post the link to the kinship resource that you mentioned? And if you have a moment. Thank you again. And then while Maria is working on that, I do want to mention that I will be sharing lots of resources, both on the Sustainable California Libraries resource page and on our newly open to anyone who's interested listserv, which is conveniently linked from the resources page. And this seems like a great resource to add to that page. I am super open to resources that could or should be added to that page. So if you find anything like that, please do let me know. If you have a moment later today in the summit or afterwards to follow up and subscribe to the listserv, it's not super active, so you're not going to be receiving a million messages yet. But please do so, because we would love to have you sharing and part of the journey. Thanks, Maria, for posting that in chat. And we have up next Jennifer. Jennifer, do you want to get your slides ready?
Let me do that right now.
Sounds super. And thank you again so much, Maria. And make sure to tell Mark hello and thank you. We really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
All right, can you all see my first slide there?
We do, Jennifer.
Excellent.
And if you're ready, we're ready.
All right,
So,
well, that is going to be a seriously tough act to follow, but I'm excited to be here. My goodness. Well, for those libraries that are watching this who don't have $42 million and a huge plot of land to build the most beautiful library ever, I'm here to tell you what you can do with a relatively small amount of money from an LSTA grant, or perhaps if you have local funding as well. So the title of my presentation is U-Tool-ize Your Library, and I can't take credit for that. I stole it. I can't even remember who I stole it from. So if I stole it from you, thank you for letting me borrow it. And I'm going to be using it for a while. I am the director of the Benicia Public Library, and I am here to talk about a couple of our grants. The grant that we got that I'm actually talking about, the SOS, Sustain Our Sustainability, is the second LSTA grant Benicia has received on the topic of sustainability. The first was All Benicia Can Save, which was a book to action grant we received in fiscal year 22-23. I want to share just a little bit of information about this original grant because it shows how we had already set ourselves up in the sustainability arena and established with our community that we are good partners in this field and have resources to share. So using the book All We Can Save as a platform, we did a 6-month series of programs for adults and children on topics such as composting, plant-based cooking, climate justice, climate and health, sustainable gardening, and things like that. As a part of that grant, we also established a seed library and a pollinator support garden and formed a partnership with our area's chapter of Food is Free to do food distribution once a month at the library throughout the year and weekly during the summer. A big win since our community does not qualify for the Lunch at the Library program, and something perhaps that other libraries might want to investigate doing now that the Lunch in the Library program is slated to go away. It's been a really good alternative for us. In this slide, you can see what our pollinator garden looked like a year ago and what it looks like now. It's gone absolutely berserk. You can also see a picture of one of our current residents. This is a monarch caterpillar and is part of the 4th wave of caterpillars we've hosted, including many that community volunteers relocated here from local gardens that had run out of food for them. To date, we have hatched close to 100 monarch butterflies, and our garden is considered the premier example of a pollinator support garden in our community. And since it is used to relocate caterpillars in need, it's also referred to as a sanctuary. The grant we received this fiscal year as a part of the Sustainable California Libraries program was awarded to expand the seed library and pollinator garden programs, as well as our thing library. We had already started a modest thing library that included things like tents, telescopes, karaoke machines, DVD players, games, etc. With this new grant, which was for $18,000, we plan to start making tools available. The first thing we did was a survey. I use the term survey in quotes because it was very low key and very low tech. Basically, we recycled a piece of foam board from a presentation and put it out at the front of the library and invited people to comment. We got lots of amazing suggestions from which we were able to build a list of desired items, and we have been able to purchase almost all of them. While the survey was going on, we were doing a few other things in the background. We knew that we wanted to work with a local hardware store so we could get advice from them on types of tools and also so we could see the tools before we purchased them. We ended up having to special order many that they didn't keep in stock, but having them available to confer with when making those selections was very beneficial. One of the other things we were able to do by working with the local hardware store is an agreement with them that they would offer a 10% discount to anyone who came in to purchase items to use with one of our tools. So if, for instance, if you were borrowing a staple gun, you could go and get your staples for 10% off. On the advice of another library with a tool library, we decided to go with DeWalt as our preferred brand because they have an excellent reputation. They're easy to use tools for lay people, and all of the tools that required batteries use the same type, so they'd be interchangeable. So the idea that we were going to start checking out power tools made our city attorney very nervous. We briefly thought the entire program would get shut down or that we might need to invest in additional insurance, which would have effectively shut it down since we couldn't afford that. We reached out to several libraries across the country that had successfully established circulating tool collections to see what they had done. We found a mix of those who were operating on a sort of don't ask, don't tell policy, and others that had limited what they were offering to what they could get their respective attorneys to agree to. In the end, the line that was drawn for us was no power saws. So we have a couple of hand saws, which I've used myself actually a few times, but as of yet, no power saws. Our plan based on feedback from the city manager was to buy everything on the list we'd created that was not a saw first and then revisit the saw question, but we ran out of money before we got to that point. we went back and forth with the attorney over the hold harmless form and tested it numerous times before we deployed it using DocuSign Power Forms, which allows the patron to fill out the form at the desk at checkout. So you must be 18 years old to check out a tool so you can legally sign the form. It was really exciting the very first time somebody actually used it, because every time we would do a test run, everybody who was on the project would get the email that somebody had filled out the form. And then the first time it was an actual patron, we were all like, what just happened? And we all ran out to the front desk. And I swear, if we'd had confetti cannons, we would have used them. So these are some of the highlights of our Hold Harmless form. It's a 2-page document and rather extensive with some scary language, including the word death, but no one is balked at signing it. If anyone wants a copy of it to use as a template, I'd be happy to share it, and I'll be sharing my email address at the end of the presentation so you can contact me. We've had quite a few adventures in processing of tools. The logistics of packaging some of the tools proved challenging at times. Cataloging was not too difficult, because we found that there are actually quite a few tools, or at least simple records, that can be modified in OCLC. So we haven't had to do much true original cataloging, but it is more time consuming than simple copy cataloging. Physical processing was even more complex. Our cataloger, who felt like a kid in a candy store when it came to selecting tools, had to spend a fair amount of time locating appropriate packaging for the physical processing of items. Some tools either fit into or came with DeWalt tool bags. Others we had to get creative. You can see on one of these pictures an item that came with a separate battery pack that needed to stay with the item, but we didn't have a container for it that worked. So we ended up using zip ties to connect them, and we used different color zip ties to indicate whether it's one that should be removed at checkout or not. We used luggage tags for barcodes and content descriptions on most items, which are also zip tied to the item using red zip ties, red for do not cut. We put money into the grant for staffing, for both cataloging and processing, as well as for the cost of packaging materials. In all, we spent about $12,000 of the grant, or 2/3, on actual tools, and the remainder was on processing, cataloging, and storage. Speaking of storage, when we started out, we had planned to invest in a shed that would be adjacent to the library to store the tools, but we ended up instead finding storage space inside for easier access. We are fortunate to have a basement, so we set up the tools in that space. I've included a snapshot from an email that went out a couple of months ago clarifying where different things are stored, because they're literally in every nook and cranny in the library. As you can see from that, items from our Thing library are stored in 4 different locations depending on the type of item. 3 of the 4 locations require staff assistance to retrieve. It continues to be a rolling challenge. Most recently, we had to develop a plan for where to store items, a tool specifically that had been put on hold for pickup. And as we add more items, we'll have to continue to adjust, but as of right now, things are working well. For patrons, we have a binder with photos and descriptions of all the items in our Thing library, and section 2 is for tools. We also have a full list of items on our website. Other than where to find the tools, the main instructions for staff boil down to 2 things: making sure the Hold Harmless form is submitted, and checking the item for condition as it goes out and comes back in. We decided not to create a bunch of new rules around this collection. Have a very lenient policy when it comes to other materials. We don't charge fines. When items are returned damaged or declared lost, we levy replacement charges to the patron, and they have to clear their card in order to check out new items, but we don't chase people for payments. We recently had a tool set that returned with a broken piece, and the patron bought the replacement piece for us. This isn't something we normally do with books, but in this case, we decided that was fine since we didn't need to replace the entire tool, and the part the patron brought us was new and exactly the same as the piece that had broken. We do have a few logistical things we decided on. We are part of a library partnership with 2 other library systems, Solano County Library, which has 8 locations, in St. Helena, collectively referred to as Splash. Patrons do not need to be Benicia residents, so they can check out tools with a Splash partner card, but they must check them out here from us and also return them here to us. We won't send these items through delivery. We also had to work with our partners on collection codes since they also circulate things with similar restrictions, and we needed to keep straight who got to use the tool collection code versus kit or 3D object. We've had a lot of fun with promotions. We have been slowly putting new items out as they were available for the last few months. Then during our Earth Week celebration last month, we did a tool showcase where we brought up all the different tools that had not checked out and put them on display in the front of the library so people could really see what we'd amassed. And then we have my favorite part, Ben and Garrett. We had originally planned to work with the hardware store staff to make videos about how to use various tools, but due to staffing turnover, that idea kind of fell through. So we turned to our own public works department and found a gold mine. Ben and Garrett have become local internet stars with their social media series showing off the different tools. They become so popular that now we are extending the series to include more library services. Next month, we'll be featuring Ben and Garrett Discover, Discover and Go, our museum pass program, and we are building an entire marketing plan for library services around the antics of these two. And this has been super fun partnership between our 2 departments, and the guys are getting all sorts of love as they are recognized around town. So that is our Sustainable California Libraries grant in a nutshell. If anyone has questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Thank you. That is awesome. I really cannot wait to see some of the social media and the videos from Ben and Garrett. Public Works is a great internal partner, and I feel like the unsung heroes of many city and county government structures. So I love that you're featuring local public works staff to promote this. If anyone has questions for Jennifer, feel free to either pop those into chat. Ben has mentioned some great stuff here. On the resources page, there's links to other tool libraries. Megan has a question here. Does Public Works also help with maintenance of the tools? Great question.
They don't, but we haven't actually had any, all of them are brand new at this point, so we haven't had any real issues with maintenance at this point. We just pretty much making sure that when they come back in, that they came back in the same condition that they left in, same as we do with our books and other materials. So if we had something that broke, probably we would go back to the hardware store before we went to Public Works to see if they could help us with it, and to see if it's something that could be repaired or just needed a replacement piece, or if it wasn't fixable, we'd probably just purchase a new one.
Yeah, makes sense. And that was an interesting point too about your mention of the local hardware store and your partnership with them. So thanks for mentioning that. We are doing a great job of being right on time. So if there's any last questions or love, thanks, comments for Jennifer and the hard work that she's done on this project, I really also want to just express appreciation for the buildup that you showed, that you demonstrated that before the project starts, you're already building the audience, the engagement, the background information. You did all of that work ahead of time on other projects, so they all kind of linked together. And I think that's what made it really impactful for your community. So I am very excited about that. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right. So in just a moment or two, oh, thank you. Yeah, Dorothy, County of San Luis Obispo, has done a lot with tool libraries and is another presenter here with us today. I just also wanted to say hi to Ben. Lots of work with tool libraries, and National City has a current tool library, and there's some other links too. If you know of a tool library that we don't know, please do share it on the Sustainable California Libraries list. All right, so next up, I am very excited to welcome Azusa. So today we have Leila and Nathan who are going to join and tell us all about their project, and then we'll take a little break.
Right. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to start the slideshow. Hello, everyone again, and thank you for allowing us to present on our project. My name is Leila Hassen, and I'm joined by our consultant and facilitator who was very instrumental in our project development and implementation for our Revisiting Azusa's Past. This is an LSTA grant that we embarked on this past fiscal year. So just to give you a brief glimpse of Azusa, this is just a snapshot. We're located in the San Gabriel Valley in Los Angeles County. Our main local recreation area, we have a few, but the one we'd like to highlight today is the San Gabriel Mountains. We're one of many cities surrounding the San Gabriel Mountains. And it is definitely a stunning sight to see. It's been made a national monument, but we'll go into that a little bit later. We have one city library and one bookmobile. We serve a population of just under 50,000. We're at a 14.6% poverty rate, and we have a fairly younger population with a median age of 30.8. So some of our community assets and local partners, and this is not a comprehensive list. These are some partners we've worked with in the past and some we hope to work with in the future. Azusa Unified School District, Azusa Pacific University, the Azusa Community Garden, which is run by our city's Community Services Department, All In for Azusa, which is a cross-sector collaboration of service providers and government organizations, and the Watershed Conservation Authority, which we will refer to a little bit later on as well. And they're a JPA of the San Gabriel Mountains and Local Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. So some of our community goals, aspirations, and challenges, and again, this is not comprehensive, not all encompassing. Conservation and climate resilience continues to be at the forefront. More so recently, we received a $2 million grant from the USDA Forest Service for an urban forest management master plan. This is run by the city and the Community Services Department. The city will be creating, fingers crossed, an urban food forest, and the funding will also go towards outdoor recreational activities. So this was very big news and very exciting for Azusa. There is a local history revival. I would say it's probably been happening the past few years. One example of that is we received a multi-million-dollar grant to renovate a century-old schoolhouse. It was literally moved from 2 miles down the street right to the park that the library shares. It's going to be renovated. And this also includes the local history museum, historical society. It's all part of Library Park where we're located. And at the same time, there's the modernization of our infrastructure. Library will be renovated. That's due to a multi-million-dollar state library grant. The senior center will also have its own renovation. And at the same time, more outdoor recreational infrastructure is going to be built. There is a focus on bridging economic disparity, which is very critical, and also furthering economic development. And in addition, there are institutional changes happening in Azusa. Our school district has reorganized this past year. That's due to historically low enrollment. Some school sites have shut down, some have combined, and they're now applying a community schools model. And for that, there's an increase increased focus, I should say, on local partnerships, of which the library is definitely has a prominent role there. So with all of that in mind, the previous slide and this one, there is a discussion in the city of Azusa about what our city will look like 10, 15, 20 years from now and beyond. There is the historic preservation, there is the environment, sustainability, but also a lot of modernization happening. And so that takes us into our Sustainable California project, revisiting Azusa's past. Components of this project are highlighting Azusa's indigenous roots, our indigenous history, programs involving environmental stewardship, water-wise gardens, cultivating native plants, drought tolerance and water conservation. These are big issues in our area, with a few exceptions where we've gotten some nice amount of rainfall. We are still a very dry area, dry climate, so conservation is very important. And educating about conservation and different types of native plants and sustainable gardening is a role that the library is trying to build up our resources for, and the creation of a seed library. And another inspiration, so I talked about the aspirations and goals and challenges of the community, but one thing that also inspired this grant is simply being in this library. When you visit the library, you notice these big, large, beautiful windows, and they capture a glimpse of the local mountains, of the scenery. And so oftentimes, if you're working here, patrons, visitors will drop by and they'll point to the mountains and they'll ask about the history. They'll ask about the trails. They'll ask about the origins of even just the name Azusa. And so that's another reason why we wanted to be a source of all this local information that we've been providing. So moving on to this next section, our intended outcomes of revisiting Azusa's past. We wanted to highlight Azusa's indigenous history, but also to center the point of view of members of our community. Of course, we wanted to foster environmental awareness and the protection of nature, but also provide a problem-solving discussion, potential solutions, what we all can do as a community. And we wanted to create and foster a social and interactive space in the library to learn about local history, make it a conversation, as well as utilizing our resources and connecting our community members to one another and to local landmarks. And now with that, I'm going to transition to our co-presenter, Nathan Nunez, who will be presenting on the next few slides and a little bit more about our Revisiting Azusa's past programs.
Well, thank you, Leila, and I appreciate being here with you all today. Haminat, which means greetings in my native language. And then I want to just first, just share about who I am as, my native history, my connection to the city of Azusa. My family's been in the city of Azusa since 1886. We have lineage to the Sangaro Mountains since 1765. So we go back pretty far. We have a long history of gathering in the Sangaro Mountains, and just the work that we do in terms of advocacy, protection, and just cultural sharing to communities around us. So Azusa is a very special place to my family. It's one of the oldest documented archaeological villages within LA County, nearing 10,000 years. That's very unique. And the word Azusa comes from the word Asuksa. Asuksavit meaning the place or village of his grandmother. And the meaning behind it is very beautiful. And I know personally my grandma has been gathering up in the mountains above Azusa since, probably for over 100 years, in the sense of, just repeated generations is coming up over and over again. And then this picture that you see on this slide here is from 1928. You'll see that there's a knoll, kind of hilly outcropping at the top of the picture. And that's where the village of Asuksa was, right there and right below. And they were very smart and of knowing where to put the village, and it was right on a very hilly outcrop right above where the watershed was. And we can go to the next slide. So we did some cultural heritage presentations. The person in the picture, that's my dad. My dad has been very instrumental in bringing back our warrior culture, but also to just sharing about, just his connection to the land and his relationships, and what he's learned growing up and passing it on to me has been something that I'm very appreciative of, and I'm glad to have learned and just continue to learn. So the workshops we did were sharing about the local Gabrielino history. And the Gabrielino people are a diverse and rich people. And they got the name Gabrielino from the San Gabriel mission within the city of San Gabriel today. The native people who were in the mission were then referred to as Gabrielino, but they're from many different ethnic linguistic backgrounds, including LA Basin, coastal island Gabrielino people, who sometimes go by Tongva or Quiche today, and then Saran people who were in the San Gabriel Mountains, Serrano, and then Katanamuk, and then Cahuilla as well, who are also in the San Gabriel mission. There are over 100 villages within Los Angeles County, and each village was its own sovereign, politically independent, and connected by kinship ties. Each village itself was very unique in the sense of, if you wanted to enter a village, you would have to ask or be invited in to be welcomed into that space. Next slide. So through our different workshops that we did at the library, one of them was a beading workshop. And we started off with a beading workshop, which may be the simplest of the workshops we did, but it has a lot of story and time behind it. And specifically, for us up in the San Gabriel Mountains and our culture to the Azusa area, the king snake was a very important aspect of our culture. The colors that were on the king snake represented just the way our people connected with the land, the paints that we put on our body, and then different ways of ceremony. So you've seen the necklace that we made with our community members here. The colors mimic the king snake pattern, and you'll see the water right around the king snake mimicking how just that relationship our native people have with the water itself, right? There's a quote that we share a lot, but when we enter our natural space or natural environment, it's not so much we are just seeing these things that is inanimate objects. The places around us are alive and they have stories to tell. So we let those stories be told in the elements around us and the environment around us. And so the king snake is a native to the transverse mountain ranges of Southern California. And beading necklace making is storytelling. And components of the necklace denote lineage, clan wealth, and more. And for the community members to be able to participate in the tradition that goes back thousands of years, where necklaces like these were traded, maybe not specifically this necklace, this is made with glass beads, but traditionally the necklaces from the past, would have ended up all the way in New Mexico, all the way up north and down south. So there's a lot of history to these necklaces. And then about me, like I mentioned, my dad and my family, we are lineal descendants to Hopshevit, which is in the San Gabriel Mountains. Next slide. These are just some really beautiful pictures that we captured from a basketry workshop. This is another workshop we did, and basketry is very difficult to make, and it takes a lot of time to prepare the materials, to gather the materials. It can be difficult to gather the materials. Luckily, we have a relationship with the Forest Service, and we're able to gather materials for traditional practice like this. But again, as you can see here, it's very tedious, time-consuming, takes a lot of patience and understanding that this is not so much about getting from point A to point B, but it's the process in between and what it's going to be, used for in the future, right? And this isn't something that just goes and sits on your shelf. It's something that you are forming a story with and being able to connect with this piece as you're creating it. So these are just some beautiful pictures from our workshops that we did of some baskets being made. Baskets are very special to people down here in Southern California. I know the Cahuilla specifically makes some really beautiful baskets, Gabrielino people as well, and then the Saran as well. Next slide. Some more pictures from our basketry workshop. This one's really special because we have elders in this picture, Gabrielino elders specifically, who have decades and decades and decades of involvement in the community, and just being able to share space with them and learn and have them lead and instruct and create these baskets in this space is really special. It does not happen often. And just to give a perspective, we had an elder passed away, a few years back, and when she passed away, pretty much a lot of these traditions stopped with it. So to be able to bring this back is very special and very uncommon in Los Angeles in the sense of the Gabrielino people. So this is a very special picture. I'm going to say it is historic because, it's just, this doesn't happen that often. Next slide. And the next workshop we did was a Tule doll workshop, and Tule dolls are I think when people think about Native Americans, sometimes you might realize that they weren't just hunting and gathering. They played as well. They had games. There's different types of games. A Tule doll was specifically one of those dolls that was made, and that the young ones played with, during their days. And a Tule doll is something that takes a lot of work to prepare. And you have to go into the water and collect the reeds. You have to cut them, right? You have to prepare them. There's a lot of work that goes into creating a Tule doll. Making the doll itself is not too hard, but collecting the Tule reeds definitely takes you getting in the water knee deep most of the time and cutting the Tule and preparing it. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. Tule's been used for play mats that went on the floors of the quiches, the homes, or subterranean structures that the people lived in. Regalia, sandals, and more. And yeah, this was a really special workshop, and I know several of the community members were just really eager to participate in this one, and they did. And you can see on the right one of the Tule dolls that was made. Next slide. So I just want to bring it all back home and tie it together. All these materials that were sourced were from the natural landscape, and they did come from the natural landscape and represent that connection to the natural landscape of how we responsibly cultivate and care for the environment around us and our usage and relationship with that environment. And for us being so close to a national monument, a forest that encompasses 70% of LA's open space, because we really lack open space within LA. There's a lot of people who go up into this space to recreate and see what the beauty of these mountains have to offer. And unfortunately, these people are going to these spaces when they should be able to experience it within their communities. That's where the real issues, need to be addressed. But we can go to the next slide. And then just real quick on the last slide, we can stay here, Leila, but, just some other groups, the Watershed Conservation Authority, the Sangre River Mountains Conservancy, they do a lot of work for open green space, and they're a key player in terms of, creating these opportunities for our community. So this is just, again, last slide here. We're just tying it all together. And the work that my family does, we're big advocates, and we do a lot of cleanup work within the Sangre Mountains. And we bring attention to some of the issues that the mountains do face when it has a high visitation, one of the most visited forests in the country. This article here just kind of encapsulates that. That's on the screen. This article did come from a cleanup we did in July of last year. But we continue to advocate, educate, and bring awareness and do cleanup work in these mountain ranges as we connect it to the work we do. And I'll go ahead and stop there and allow for any questions.
Thank you so much. I know we're a little over time here, but I didn't want to stop you. I remember reading this article, and this is such an interesting tie-in. Really appreciate the work both of you have done on this project. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please do go ahead and pop those into chat. And then in just a moment, we will take a short break. Thank you so much. And Angie, if you don't mind throwing up the break slide, if you're able to do that. If not, no big deal. And we are going to take a pretty short break because I do want everyone to walk away from their computer for a moment. Maybe look outside if you have a lovely view. Enjoy it. If you don't, try to just get some fresh air. We're going to return at 10:10, and I'll put that into chat. So returning and starting right up at 10:10. So everyone, please do take a break, and thank you again. So are you ready to go? And Angie, are we ready to record again, or are we already recording?
We just started.
Perfect. All right. Welcome back in, everyone. We have a couple more presentations, and then we'll have another little break. right now I'm really excited to pass it over to Jodi from Burlingame. Jodi, take it away.
Hi, and I'm really happy with all the inspiring stuff I've already learned so far and been able to take. I'll hopefully bring that back to the library and also to share what we are now doing with the grant we received for sustainable living with BPL. I'm an adult services librarian here at Burlingame Public Library. And we were recently, like many places, we've experienced the climate change for, with all kinds of things going on, such as all the winter storms. We were one of the only places that had energy at one point in time, like a little island. And so it brought home how much we need to be participating and helping our community by working with different partners, different local agencies and nonprofits, and also different parts of our city to work and help us become part of, I guess, the solution. So one of the things, we kind of took a three-pronged approach. So we reduce, reuse, recycle, and then gardening and water use, and then clean energy and electrification were the main ways we approached this. So one of my favorite parts of this whole thing was building a garden with California native plants. When I began working on this project, one of the things I did was talk with our city manager of sustainability. And she introduced me to some other people in our city that we don't tend to like cross over as much. And one of them is our compliance officer. So she's one of the ones, they are the ones who work with Bosco, which probably many people are familiar with if you're in the Bay Area. It's the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency. And they're the ones who are trying to convince everybody to watch their water use, or they kind of run all the water use. And so the library had been part of like different programs to try to the law be gone. So encouraging people to get rid of that. But people always asked us, we don't know what to do. And so in this case, when talking to different people in the city, they had already had some plans to take part of the lawn over at City Hall, which is across the street from the library. And you can see this plot of land and use it as a demonstration garden. So the great thing with working with the different people in the city was they could help navigate getting the permission for doing this. And we also reached out to the master gardeners to kind of lead us through this process. And they also did it with a series of talks. So while we bookended it on each end with the demonstrations, hands-on demonstrations in the gardens, in our garden, we also had these different talks, which then the master gardeners that we were working with had been wanting to try to create a workshop series that they could kind of have as, I guess, an off-the-shelf set of programs to do. And they used the programs that we were doing here to create this, so other libraries now will be able to take advantage and do these programs. And one of the other things we also did was a webinar on rainwater harvesting. And that's recorded and is still being viewed on our YouTube, on the library's YouTube station. So we started the process, of course, with sheet mulching to be able to, well, first of all, we had to go through the process of getting permission from all the different parts of our, like the city manager and the Parks Department. And that was really helpful to have different people in the other parts who were more used to working with all these different departments. And so we were kind of working in parallel with the master gardeners to figure out what we're going to do, but also to get permissions. And so we also had to have the Parks Department take out the sprinklers, which is part of what we were trying to get other people to do. So here we are, and we did the first of our talks back in November so that the sheet mulching could take advantage of the wet weather. And when you had the talk, and then people followed us over and picked up shovels and started helping us do the sheet mulching. So then what followed was a period before we could plan it. We had to go through the whole process of planning. So this reflected all the classes that we were leading with the master gardeners. We also were having to do the same thing ourselves. So one of the things we were doing was like trying to plan it, like what plants are we going to have? How do we want it to be designed? And so the master gardener we were working with helped us with a list of variety of plants that we could use. We then took that list and had it being looked through by the Parks Department to make sure that they were okay with everything. And once we had winnowed down that list, then we came up with a survey, which allowed our community to say what kind of plants they were interested in. So we had a curated list, but of course we got lots of comments, and people were just really excited to hear about like this was going on. And one of the things that we also did, which I was surprised about, but I shouldn't have been, is we took advantage of story walk signs. We had started doing this when we were closed to the public during COVID, is our children's department had made various story walks around City Hall. And we used the same kind of signs to like communicate about what was happening here at this garden plot, and also that people could see what programs we were going to have. And so that was actually a way we brought in some people who had never gone to any library programs. So we're hoping to continue using these like story walk signs to like let people know. And so we, after that, then we started buying our plants and started, you can see in the other slide that we're starting laying them out to try to figure out how we want our garden to look, because one of the ways we're using this is to convince people that native gardens aren't just succulents or like low water use, because we were also trying to promote them as pollinator plants. That's our master gardener we were working with. That's one of her main concerns, is like providing a place for the bugs and other pollinators to like live. So then appropriately enough, on Earth Day weekend, we had our planting program. So we actually went and we did that, and then we went and planted our garden. So right after that, a couple days later, I went to go check on it, and already one of our sticky monkey flowers was a host to one of the native butterflies. So they're like the larval hosts. So that made me really happy that we already were being effective. Some other programs we did around gardening and water use was we hosted the author of Golden Gate Gardening book, which is kind of the tome of gardening for the Bay Area. So, and the other thing that was great about that is after she talked about gardening here in the Bay Area, she also like had all these amazing salads, like, or all kinds of different recipes and food you can make. And we also supplied our patrons with some different with plant that would reflect what they learn about. And the sample here is a native strawberry, which I didn't realize we had. And they actually came from our master gardeners, and they actually act as, it can be ground covered too, and our pollinators host as well. Another popular one was our succulent teacup Mother's Day craft, and we were able to source a bunch of the teacups from different places, Goodwills and garage sales, and the people have already been asking. Oh, and we were able to get the plants from one of our plant swaps. So we've already been asked to do this one again, and perhaps do it for children. We did let some children, but it was aimed at our adults. So another thing we were able to do with our grant was we had a nascent seed library, and we were able to use some of these funds to buy native California wildflower seeds. And also we're getting a mobile cart to use for outreach with the seeds. One of our other prongs was to reduce, reuse, recycle, and we used one of our existing programs to teach people how to sew drawstring bags. So for reusable produce bags, or even since it was the holiday, it was gift bags. And you can see this one young this boy here, he came in because he had been making some homemade jam jars for his gifts, and he wanted to make bags for reusable gift bags to give them away. So he learned how, and then he went home to make some more. Another thing we did was building on a new partnership we had with Rethink Waste, our local agency that helps with dealing with our waste or reducing waste. And they wanted us to do a swap, like a game and puzzle swap, which was extremely popular. Like people were so happy. They'd come running home to get games, or they would take games and puzzles. And with them, they had been doing, and they came and did one with us, a mending workshop. We also followed that up with a hemming workshop, and we're going to be doing also an introduction to zero waste sewing. So people love these things because it's like you can see in that lower photograph, it's like learning new skills so you can keep stuff from the landfill. We also did a bunch of, as I mentioned before, a variety of different swaps, and we brought back an old favorite, our repair cafe. This takes me to the final focus, which actually is a surprise. I think it's such an important part of the electrification and clean energy, but it's really hard to think about how to do that in the library. So one of the things we did was to do a rebates and incentive panels with our local agency, the Peninsula Clean Energy. And it was, I have learned so much information. I'm like an evangelist now, and I have actual information to share with everybody about how they can take advantage of all the different encouragement out there. And one of the things we did was we debuted our new charging station bike, which was just a fun way to show how we can have all these different alternative energy resources. And it also, in the picture below, you can see it being the fender blender part being debuted at Bike to Work Day. So the other thing that we did, and a lot of our cooking classes are always really popular at our library, and we used it as a way to promote the city's induction cooktop loaner program. And one of my favorite ones, and I think some other people have had her visit too, is the zero waste chef. And she did zero waste soup on the induction cooktop. And this was so amazing because it crossed over all the different ideas that we had, and it made our library smell so good. And my director of our manager of sustainability told me that there was an uptick in interest in the loaner program. So that brings me to the end. I was so excited. I was so grateful with everybody we got to work with, and I feel so inspired hearing things here today to be able to continue and grow our programming. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jodi. As you can see, Jodi did just a few programs. And I really have just appreciated all of the partnerships and the enthusiasm and just the hands-onness of this project, especially starting with City Hall as a demonstration for actually the doing. So a lot of work has gone into that. If you have any questions or comments for Jodi, we'll take about a minute or so to do that. And I love this last slide and the lovely logo that you've created. You.
Oh yeah, that was thanks to our designer. She made us, we're so lucky. We have lots of beautiful posters to promote everything.
It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. All right, so we are gonna switch over in just a moment to Santa Barbara. I see Kim, looks like she's ready. Kim, if you wanna pop open your slides.
I sent them to Angie. I'm hoping she has them.
Angie,
okay, thank you.
I'm gonna pop open Kim's slides, and while we do that, Jennifer, actually, I think I referenced your charging bike when I was talking with Jodi or someone else. I was like, I know there's someone else that recently has that bike. Yeah, so that's really great. And lots of libraries have engaged and had really great response with the zero waste chef, who I now know focuses more on like low waste than zero waste because we can't be perfect. So appreciate that. And it looks like Angie is just starting sharing and is ready to hop into Sustainably SBPL. Kim, take it away.
Yay, thank you everyone. Hello, my name is Kim Crail. I'm a librarian at the Santa Barbara Public Library. I'm here to present about Sustainably SBPL, and this is a quick peek at the progress of our programming, grant project. There are other aspects of this grant that I won't get into because I'm most familiar with the programming, but we also have a library of things aspect too. I'm not going to go there. It's just too much. But I'm very proud of the work that our whole team has done with regard to sustainability and community engagement during this grant period, and it's been supported by the California State Library. And I just want to say a big thank you, because without this grant, we would not have the capacity nor the resources to be able to pull this off. And we just want to, again, just say a big thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so I wanted to just give you a little overview of Santa Barbara and the Santa Barbara Public Library. We have 3 brick and mortar locations that are shown here. There's the Central Library, East Side Library, and the Montecito branch, which is actually a county branch. We also have a Library on the Go van, which does weekly and monthly stops out in the community and special stops. It goes to schools and parks and retirement places and all sorts of places, neighborhood navigation and such. And as for the city of Santa Barbara itself, we're very lucky to have the ocean and the mountains. If you haven't visited Santa Barbara, I highly recommend it. You might not want to leave. We have UCSB here, which is how a lot of us have moved here over the years, and other colleges in the area. It's a very expensive place to live, unfortunately, and our unhoused population is increasing despite getting people into housing. It's just the numbers are going up. So our library staff are on the front line of dealing with some of that every day. And we have a lot of incidents and we work very hard. So another thing to know about Santa Barbara, it's not what you would necessarily expect. It's not all like surfers and Meghan Markle. We have a very diverse community with many cultures and socioeconomic levels represented. And we emphasize access for Spanish-speaking patrons. In particular, we have a lot of Spanish-speaking community members, staff, and programs. One thing also to know about the Santa Barbara community is that we had a big oil spill here in 1969, and that's often credited for the beginning of Earth Day. So we have a lot of nonprofits in town, and environmentalism is high on people's priority list here. We also experienced the Montecito debris flow in 2018, which woke people up locally to the effects of climate change. And we've experienced, like I think Jodi was saying similarly, heavy rains, and we've had evacuations and erosion. And this topic is very important to the city and the library. And what we were really hoping to do with this grant was provide free programming to bring people together to focus on sustainability practices in their own lives. I'm ready for the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the fun part where I get to talk about the programs that we were able to plan with this grant money. I'll list them because there's so many, and I tried to put some nice pictures so you can get a sense of like the energy behind some of the programs. But I really feel like I want to list the programs too, just because it was a lot. So in January, we did a composting and vermicomposting workshop, and a Spanish as well, taller de compostaje y vermicompostaje. Sorry, I'm not a Spanish speaker. And we did trail talks in February, Tending the Earth, Exploring Ethnobotany and Land Etiquette with Solange Aguilar. In March, we had a lot of programming. We did we tried to do a botanic garden field trip, and unfortunately it was canceled due to rain. That was really sad. We had a lot of work that went into that, and then we weren't able to reschedule with the botanic garden because of capacity or something on their end. But we did in March, April, and May do literacy in the garden classes with a local environmental educator named Sammy Simon. And we also did family garden exploration classes as well. One thing we learned is we wanted it to be like a family literacy series initially, and that wasn't as big of a draw as just calling it family garden exploration. So that was a good learning for us. We did a book to action series. We covered our main title was Kiss the Ground. We did a film screening, and we had a soil health Q&A with Dr. David White, and he's a local, or he's from Ojai, but a soil expert. And then we did book discussions. We read Kiss the Ground and had a discussion of that. We also read The Vaster Wilds. by Lauren Groff and Earthkeeper by N. Scott Momaday. If you're looking for a book for like an accessible book that brings people together, I think the Earthkeeper book was really powerful, and it brought people in a unique way. So I would recommend that. In March and April, we did Rethread and Renew, which was a hand sewing and mending essentials workshop. A second one called Sew Simple, SEW, Sew Simple, Introduction to Machine Sewing with the Crafters Library, which is one of our partners. And a third one is Adapt and Adjust, Introduction to Alterations, and an Open Sew Lab. Another part of this grant was we were able to rent a community garden plot, which is near our East Side Library. And we were able to do a teen volunteer program there called Growing Community Garden Volunteens. We did learn to make sauerkraut and quick kimchi with UC Master Food Preservers. And then in April, we did Fermenting for Wellness, a simple guide to home fermentation with a local dietitian. We did a soil preparation presentation with UC Master gardeners, and a teen poetry workshop with one of our former poet laureates. It was called Imagining a Sustainable Future Through Poetry. And then in May, we did 2 classes with a local organization called Rooted, which focuses on plant-based eating. One was Plant Your Life, Recipes for Sustainable Health and Longevity. And then the following week, we did the same program in Spanish, Planta tu vida, recetas para una salud sostenible y longevidad. Then we did a Fix-It fair the following weekend. This just happened a couple weeks ago, where we had volunteers come from the community, volunteer bike fixers, menders. We had some refill stations from a local organization, Sunkissed Pantry, that does refills for like soap and things like that to get away from using plastic and one-time bottles. And I think our fixers were able to mend, I think, 30 items of clothing, or maybe 30 people's items. And then I think they were able to fix 17 bikes. So we're happy with how that turned out. We also have 2 upcoming workshops that we have not completed yet, but they are DIY natural dyes with Mary Gonzalez of Sweet Mountaintop Farm. And I think you're probably wondering, gosh, that was a lot. How did we get so much done? So I have another slide to help answer that question. Angie, if you don't mind doing the next one. Thank you. So I wanted to introduce our LSTA grant squad so we can pay proper respect and give credit to the folks who made this happen. 5 of us pictured here on the left started meeting back in October, aiming for weekly standing meetings, and they were kind of working meetings too. We had a lot of questions. We bounced ideas off each other, used each other's contacts, borrowed each other's ideas. We did a lot of troubleshooting, especially when things were coming up, kind of unexpected things. And Paige Sundstrom, our grant lead, she's off today, so I'm doing this presentation. She is exceptionally organized. I think she talked to Juliana, so I'm sure Juliana knows her well, but she's exceptionally organized and easy to work with, and that made these meetings really fun and productive. And our marketing team is extremely talented, and they have incredible aesthetics. Our social media has been a big focus, which has reaped a lot of benefits with regard to getting the word out about our programs. So I won't list all of our team members. I mean, that doesn't really even go into it because we have support staff that are not listed here. That's all the rest of the library staff who help promote the events, keep the library running when we're meeting and setting up and breaking down or enjoying our programs. And they also help to answer questions, register patrons, help us communicate with partners, and just keep things running smoothly and easily. I guess I'm ready. Well, I guess I should go through. I'll just say quickly, we don't get a chance to work together like this. So that was a really great benefit of this grant, because we were able to meet together. Like, we don't always have adult and children's staff working together. We don't always have programming and collection staff working together. And it just all seemed to be much more seamless and supported because of the grant. So you know, like summer reading program, I think is like another example of something where we would work together. But this grant kind of gave us a great opportunity to expand that. Okay, I'm ready for the next slide, please, Angie. Oh, so this slide reveals all of the amazing partners and partnerships that were experienced over the course of this grant. We actually had the money to pay people, which was incredible. You know, sometimes when you're planning programs with people and you don't have money to pay them, you can feel like you're taking an advantage, or, you know, are they invested in this, and, you know, this and that. So this was a really wonderful chance to kind of like develop relationships and start on a good foot with people. Um, we were able to value people's time and energy in a way that we can't always do when we don't have the funding. We're able to help value them and support their work and their passion. Many of these partners were new to us, and it made for, yeah, just a great introduction to the library. And they get to see kind of how our programming works and how the marketing works and all that. So hopefully we will be able to be working with them in the future. And the community really responded well to the partners that came in and helped, like the volunteers and the experts and the presenters, and, you know, being in different spaces. For our mending classes, we were able to do them at the Crafters Library nearby, and people really enjoyed that a lot. We had so many, it also revealed a lot of ways that our partnership process and our workflows could be improved. So that was a nice outcome from this too. Next slide, please. So this, I wanted to talk a little bit about wins and learnings, what went well and what could be improved. We had mostly great everything, but we had some highs and lows as well. One big challenge that we faced was weather, because we had to cancel like one of the big programs I had mentioned. The Botanic Garden was going to take a bus from the library to the Botanic Garden, which would solve some access issues for some patrons. But because of the rain, we weren't able to do it that weekend, and it wasn't able to be rescheduled, unfortunately. And then we had to move, you know, think on your feet, move locations, and reschedule things for various reasons, for weather and other things. Because our library is under construction, that made things more complicated, like figuring out where to host programs, you know, having the AV and tech figured out for locations where we wouldn't ideally be doing those programs, making sure all of our calendars were updated and everything. And then getting through the partnership agreements. We had, I think post-COVID, our partnership process was a little more involved and complicated than it used to be. So we had to have one of our agreements approved by the city attorney. It was a new one, and it was a three-way partnership between the UC Regents, the local affiliate for UC Master Gardener, or food preservers, or UC Master Gardeners, and then the library. So it's just kind of a heavy lift. And now that it's done, the good thing is that it'll be easier going forward when we need to bust out this partnership agreement. It won't be like starting fresh. We had really amazing multi-generational engagement in our programs. We received feedback from people that they really enjoyed the hands-on aspect. And I think it was bringing in different types of people because of that. One attendee who came, it's like the sweetest story. She wanted to learn to sew because she has a 6-year-old son who has a dream of being a sewist. And all the classes around town are too expensive, and they don't allow children his age. So the mom wanted to teach herself so that she could teach her 6-year-old. So to help fill his dreams. So I really like that story. And then during just another fun story, during our Planta Tu Vida event, participants and presenters engaged in dynamic and interactive conversations, and they exchanged questions through the entire duration of the program. The presenters shared recipes while the assistants took notes and suggested other recipes from their home countries that are plant-based and could improve our health. And everyone enjoyed the recipes and expressed interest in having more classes like this to educate the community on how to take care of our health and our loved ones. And at the end of the class, we promoted some of the library services. Unfortunately, because it was in the evening, the library was closed, but some of the attendees visited the next day and set up works appointments and community connections appointments. So it's just a way to reach people that we are not normally reaching. And we had excellent feedback from the community. Some people said things like, we're so thankful for this grant that the library is supporting our personal goals for our health, or our creativity goals, and like they want to do things to advance their sustainability practices, and this is a good way for them to do it. So over and over we heard, do more programs like this. So we're happy that what we're doing was appreciated, and it seems to be creating change in the community beyond just the program itself. Okay, I'm ready for the next slide, please. I think it's my last one. So I wanted to say thank you for joining me today. It's just so wild how much we were able to accomplish during this grant period. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to bounce anything around or hear anything at all. And I can answer questions if you want. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kim. And I have to say that I really love that you use the library staff as models for your programming materials. Really cute. So many program ideas, so many partnerships, so much hard work, such a great team. And if you want to go ahead and pop your email contact into chat too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Great. And I think we do need to stay a little bit on track, and we'll now switch it over to our next presenters who are going to share from County of San Luis Obispo. Dorothy, are you ready?
I think so. Melanie is going to get things started off for us, and Angie has our slides.
Okay, great. Welcome, Melanie. Welcome, Dorothy. And Angie, let us know if you need anything for the slides. And thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us. We will take a short break after this, and please do come back if you are able. All right, we can see your slides. Oops, we could see your slides.
Just a sneak peek.
Okay, they're coming back. And just Angie, you can just hit cancel. Yeah, you're good. Okay,
there we go.
Super. Take it away, Melanie.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Melanie, and I'm here with my co-chair, Dorothy, from the SLO County Libraries Green Team, and we are here to tell you about our Earbud recycling program. Next slide. All right, so when our branches reopened after COVID, sanitation was obviously a big concern for everyone. We had headphones that we would offer to patrons prior to COVID, and many of them were no longer comfortable using these headphones for our public computer stations. Because of this, we started offering individually wrapped earbuds. Obviously, this caused a large uptick in the e-waste that we were producing by offering this service to our patrons. Members of the Green Team were interested in trying to find a responsible solution. Next slide, please.
So Green Team members began researching available options for recycling the e-waste. While there were many options available, we were hoping to find something that was free to us and did not have a restrictive limit on the quantity that could be sent in at one time. Next slide, please.
So for planning, once we found an option that sounded like a good fit, we reached out to the company, which is Cyber Acoustics, to get more information on how their process worked. We then took this information and drafted a proposal to library administration for approval. We knew that admin would want to know the nuts and bolts of how this would work as a department-wide process. Next slide, please. Generally, when we submit proposals, we include a statement of purpose, a description of how the program will operate, collection, storage, shipping, etc. We try to address any anticipated problems, projected staff time and labor, and potential costs, if any. When we received approval to add this program, we emailed all library branches to inform them about the new program with specific details regarding the process for collection and shipping. Next slide, please.
We wanted to avoid defeating our own purpose, and we didn't want to create more trash than we were saving. So we were concerned about keeping the process of collection safe and tidy and easy for staff while minimizing the necessity of routine usage of latex gloves. So Melanie came up with this ingenious idea of creating a trap door at the bottom of the box so that we could empty the contents without coming in contact with the earbuds. So we literally designed a pitfall to avoid a pitfall. Next slide.
Okay, so for promotion in-house, we sent an email to all staff regarding the new program and details on how we envision the process working. A staff point person was designated to answer any questions regarding the program. A flyer was created that could be posted on or near the collection bin, which you saw in the photo on the previous slide. To be sustainable, branches were encouraged to get creative and upcycle something that they already had to use as their collection bin. This helps to encourage staff ownership. They also could request to have a box created for them and sent to their branch. And specific messaging was offered to encourage staff participation. Staff want to know and share the vision. For the public, messaging was critical to encourage reduction with recycling. When staff hand out earbuds, they let patrons know that they can take them home to use again. And if they need to dispose of them, we have a collection box at the end of the computer table for recycling. They don't get the earbuds until they hear the message. Next slide, please.
So in addition to staff and one-on-one messaging to guests, we continue to message through various outlets. Social media posts. Our marketing coordinator is a member of the green team, whether she likes it or not. Actually, she's amazing, and she does like the green team. As well as information in our quarterly environment and sustainability newsletter. And then we also cast a wide net by participating in events such as a sustainability summit. Yay. Next slide.
So some of our takeaways from this so far. The good, we have a responsible way to dispose of the extra e-waste that we are creating by offering this service to our patrons. We have developed a strong messaging at 2 of our largest branches that punctuates reducing through encouragement to reuse as we are handing out our earbuds. And this is a good way for our community to see the library leading by example and responsibly handling their waste management. And the not as good. There has not been as much participation throughout the branches as we would like. Only 2 out of 14 are actively doing this, as far as we know. And it has also been difficult to assess patron participation since we have started making a point to remind patrons to reuse their earbuds. Next slide, please.
Here are our resources that we can offer for this project. We also included the resource that we used to establish our recycling program for our AV plastics. We diverted over 1,000 pounds of plastic that is not accepted at our recycling center from going to the landfill last year. And on the subject of a path to zero plastics in libraries, I want to give a shout out to my mentor, Christopher Platt, who I saw is here today. He's the library director at Mono County Library. He's taking the brave step to test, as he says, whether the sky will fall or not when they go plastic cover free on the books at one of their smaller branches. that does a lower volume of circulation. And I hope to use their pilot as a model for our library. My and Melanie's email addresses are here for you, and we'll post them in the chat too. Please do reach out if you want further info or if you want to chat about ideas for zero plastic libraries. That's it.
Thank you both. That was perfectly well timed. You got us back on track as far as timing goes. I appreciate it so much because it's practical and you detailed the process throughout which you made this happen, and you're continuing to make things happen. And Christopher made a nice comment in chat. And thanks, another big shout out to Christopher and the High Sierra Energy Foundation team at Mono County, who is doing an excellent job, a very inspirational series with lots of field trips. Looking at you, Santa Barbara. So we're gonna take questions if anyone has questions or comments, and then Angie's gonna throw up the break slide in just a moment, and we're gonna take a break, returning at 11:05. So questions, pop them into chat now. Otherwise, we'll take an actual break and return at 11:05. And thanks again, Dorothy and Melanie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Thanks all. And Angie. All right, we are recording again. Welcome back. I hope everyone did get a chance to take a brief break. Now I'm excited that we're in the last part. So thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you continue through the end. I'm going to pass it over to Alexis and Olivia from South Pasadena. Please take it away.
Hi, my name's Alexis, and today we're going to be talking about the project that we embarked on with the amazing grant that we received from the California State Library, Sowing South Pasadena. So real quick, South Pasadena is a city, it's a small community that's about 6 miles from downtown Los Angeles. It's also known as the City of Trees. It's very big on sustainability. And if you have watched a movie or TV show, chances are you have seen South Pasadena because they do a lot of filming here. And like I said, my name's Alexis Mendoza. I'm the Adult and Digital Services Librarian here at the library.
And I'm Olivia Radbill. I am the Adult Services and Local History Librarian. So we worked on this grant together.
So the team is basically me and Olivia. We are a small staff, so me and Olivia were pretty much the primary contacts on this team. And we had 5 main goals with this grant. We wanted to create a seat library that was available to the public. We wanted to conduct a lecture series focusing on topics of sustainability. We wanted to redo the signage in our library park. So the library is situated in a big park that has lots of beautiful trees and greenery. But unfortunately, the signage is pretty outdated. So we wanted to redo the signage so that it's more updated. We wanted to make a repair cafe. And then we wanted to do an arts and nature series.
So just to quickly go over the budget for this project. So our in-kind match was $8,762. The total amount of grant funding we got was $22,470. How we determined the in-kind match was it was basically how much our city is paying and how much our library is paying for us to work on this project. So what was the full-time equivalent? And it came out to our estimate was about $8,762 based on the amount of hours we predicted we would spend each week on this project. I will say, I think we have far exceeded that. We've spent a lot more time on this project than we initially anticipated. A lot of things have come up. It's been a good learning experience for us. But the majority of our project budget went to supplies and materials and services, which we're going to break down in the next few slides.
Okay, so first up is our seat library. So that was one of our main goals when we applied for this grant. So we wanted to reuse one of our old card catalogs, the classic card catalogs, to do our seat library. We got a local artist, as you can see her with her creation. Her name's Leila. She painted and did the seat library all nice. And we had a seat library kickoff party. It was a great success. We had our community garden there doing a seed swap, and we also had a plant swap. So you're probably wondering where we got all these seeds from. We have a great partnership with the South Pasadena Community Garden, and they were able to get us seeds from our local Ace Hardware. So shout out to Ace Hardware. We have a huge variety of seeds, vegetables, fruit, flowers, herbs, and we try and put them out on what will grow best in the season. So right now we have our like spring, summer seeds that we put out, and the seed library has been a huge success. A lot of people come in just to go and check out seeds. We have a lot of kids interested in gardening now from being able to look at our seeds and see what they can plant. And it, like I said, it's just been amazing output. We have currently checked out over 1,000 seed packets. And when I say check out, patrons sometimes get confused, but pretty much they don't have to bring anything back. Obviously, we're just keeping it check out for statistics purposes. And just one of the things, we hope to continue this, and we hope to create some kind of seed donation system. A lot of patrons have come up to us asking how they can donate seeds, if they can donate seeds. So we're looking into creating some kind of donation program if people want to donate their seeds as well. And then one of the big things we also wanted to do was a speaker series. So we had big goals. We wanted to find 4 speakers kind of spread out throughout the months. So we started in January, had one in January, February, March. No, it started in February. So February, March, and then 2 in April. So we had 4 speakers, and we wanted to really have a diverse range of speakers speaking on a diverse range of topics. So our first speaker was Barbara Eisenstein. She is a local author and horticulturist, and she did a presentation on gardening with native plants. And this was a really cool presentation because it especially focused on native plants in South Pasadena and focused on the climate in South Pasadena. So that was really beneficial. Then we had Dr. John Fleming, and he is a climate scientist. And I wanted to give a shout out because Juliana actually set this great resource, the Environmental Experts of Color database, where I was able to contact Dr. John Fleming, and he spoke on the fossil fuels and climate crisis. And the very cool thing about his presentation, that although he is a prominent USC PhD doctor on climate, he made a very accessible presentation for people and to learn about the climate crisis. So it was very easy to follow. People loved it. And then we had actor, activist Ed Begley Jr. He came and spoke on his memoir, To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It. And it was less of a lecture and more of a fun kind of presentation where he kind of talked about the book. He did talk about how he got into environmental activism. And in case you're wondering, he is one of the nicest human beings in the world. Super nice. And he also did a book signing. And then lastly, we had a member of the Quiche tribe from Matthew Tutemes, and he did a presentation on unveiling the healing powers of native flora and fauna. And this was also less of a lecture and more of a hands-on interactive presentation. He did a lot of examples of what herbs or plants to use for healing, where you could find these native, local, and flora and fauna. And just to kind of round it all out, we average about 25 people per lecture, which is actually very good. For us. And Ed Begley's lecture brought in the most attendees with about 80 people. And it was a great success.
All right. one of our other projects was park signage. We actually worked on we did our kind of 5-year plan for the library last year, and that was published. And one of the pieces of feedback that we got from community members was they wanted to know about our microenvironments, what is in the park surrounding the library. So I walked around, I created a virtual tree map of what breeds of trees we have in the park. What I found was that a lot of our signs are very old and some of them are actually incorrect. So we are incorrectly labeling what breed of tree we have. And the type of nail that was originally used when some of those signs were put in those trees is actually poisoning the tree. The nail is rusting and you can see the cracks around the nail in the bark of the tree. So we want to fix that because our signage is currently poisoning our trees and it's not even accurate. We created this it's a full color panel. It's going to stand up. That middle image is just an example of what the panel will look like in front of the library building. So on that panel, we highlight information about the history of Library Park, including the indigenous tribes that were part of the land in this area, mostly the Tonga Gabrielinos and the Keech tribe. We talked about a beautification campaign in the late 1800s that happened in South Pasadena. And then we talk about currently, how was Library Park purchased? How much was it purchased for? What sat on Library Park before the actual library building was constructed? There was actually a greenhouse and lath house used by the city in this park in the early 20th century. So we wanted to include a little bit of that history. So when people come into the library, this is one of the things they see right by the entrance. It's just a brief history on the land that they are standing on and how we got to where we are here. And then, of course, the tree identification signs. We are getting new ones from a company called Lark Signage. They've been very good to us. It was surprisingly difficult to find a park signage company. We asked a bunch of different parks. We asked a bunch of botanical gardens. We had one guy ghost us and we just never heard back from him again. But luckily we were able to find Lark Signage, and they've been a very good partner on this project. So we are currently in the process of purchasing these signs. Again, these are just some examples here, and we will hopefully have them up soon. Our goal is by the end of June to have all of the new signage created, sent out to us, and then up in the park. We also did a repair cafe. We worked with the Pasadena Repair Cafe, helped provide information for us. They kind of guided us in this process. We were partnered with, again, South Pasadena Community Garden to put on this event, and it was very successful. Total, we had 163 attendees. And then there was the Art and Nature series. So you saw our budget earlier. We had not originally intended to do the Art and Nature series. What happened was we did the speaker series and we found that our speakers were requesting a lot less money than we had budgeted. In fact, one of our speakers even said she does not, this is Barbara Eisenstein, does not take payments for speaking engagements because she does not like the paperwork and she does this kind of as a courtesy. This is part of her life's work and her passion, and she did not want to get paid for it. So we had all of this extra money and we thought, what are we going to do with it? So we decided to create kind of this offshoot series as part of the grant program. And that included a series of workshops by our local poet laureate, Ron Kirchi. He did nature themed poetry workshops, and he's a very talented local poet. And then we had these have not occurred yet. These will be in June, but 2 performance art pieces, one by Bob Baker's Marionette Theater. And then the Music Center is doing a Mother Earth presentation. So for the Marionette Theater, they are going to do, it's a program called Down on the Farm. It's one of their kind of mainstay programs. It's about animals, and we wanted to find a way to sort of engage with our very young audiences and our families in the community. And of course, these are all free of charge and open to community members. And we've already gotten a lot of positive feedback about these events.
Okay, and then lastly, I'm going to talk about the Walking Book Club. So this was not directly funded by the grant, but we tied it into our Sowing South Pasadena programming. And basically, a lot of people are very interested in book clubs here at the library, but we decided to kind of make a twist on it, which other libraries have done before, and make it into a walking book club. So we start with we meet together before the library opens, so around 9 a.m. We meet in front of the library and we take a little walk, about 30-minute walk. On the walk, we just try to discuss the book. I do hand out questions that we can discuss in pairs or groups of 3 while we're on the walk. A lot of times it kind of transitions to other talking, but we do discuss a book. So each month we pick a book for the next month, and we've done great books so far. But this is a really great way to engage a community for book discussions, but also get them out into the community, do some physical activity with it. We have a core group now that has been attending every meeting, and they're usually part of our senior community, and it's a great way for them to kind of get out, do some physical fitness, and be able to still stimulate their minds with the book discussion. But and this will be continuing.
All right, and that actually takes us to the end of our presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing if anyone has questions for us. It's been quite a ride. I went on maternity leave in the middle of this grant, so Alexis took over everything. And we've kind of just been getting back into the flow of everything, but we have finished pretty much everything. There's just some loose ends to tie up and 2 last programs to do.
You still have June. Thank you so much, Alexis and Olivia. If you have questions or comments, please do throw those into chat. This has been such a fun pair to work with, and Alexis, maintaining throughout. I really appreciate it. It's been very fun. Yeah, such great ideas and tie-ins and different community events, and persevering, and really interesting about the signage too. I learned a lot during your presentation. All right, so now we're going to welcome to our stage Cindy, who I saw is here, and she's going to share an update on the Climate and Sustainability Action Guide for California Libraries that she's been working on in partnership with Pacific Library Partnership, who is our partner from the State Library. So Cindy, there you are, if you're ready to share your screen, we are absolutely ready for you.
Fantastic.
And while you're doing that, I'm gonna remind everyone who's still here that we'll probably finish up by 11:40, 11:45 or so. Everything will be recorded and shared out on the main sustainability page, and lots of follow-up afterwards. So please do hang with us for the next 20 or so minutes. Cindy, please take it away.
Thanks. I just want to make sure that everybody can see the picture of the lovely landscape and my cover slide, climate and sustainability. Yes, can I get a thumbs up? Okay, great. Yes. Thank you. So hi, my name is Cindy Fesemyer. I am coming to you from my home base, which is in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm part of an organization called the Alliance for Library Impact, and we were hired by the State Library and Pacific Partnerships to create a climate and sustainability action guide for libraries in California. I'm sure this is just continuing the efforts that are happening in California, and I know there's much more to come. But what we're going to do today is just take a quick preview on the results of this guide, and Juliana can share with you after I'm done when it will actually be available to you, because it's not out in the world yet, but it will be quite soon. So I want to jump right in and let you know what we did as part of our process to create this sustainability guide. So we got from the State Library team a whole bunch of information to do background research on what's going on in the state. We looked at what's going on around the rest of the country. And we pulled that together just to get sort of a state of your state and a state of the country. And then we started diving into what's actually happening in your library. So many of you on this call may have taken a survey about your sustainability efforts through your library. And then hopefully there's some folks on the call who I spoke with through the site visits, through interviews, or through the listening session that we did virtually. So I want to do a big shout out to the folks at San Mateo who had a lovely virtual site visit with me, the folks at Murrieta and San Diego Public Libraries who had in-person site visits with me, and those of you who attended the virtual listening session. I listened to what you said and I recorded what I saw in those site visits, and that helped inform the guide as well. Sorry about that. Okay, so I wanted to let you know kind of what we landed on. So clearly, many of the libraries in California have already a very ambitious agenda as far as their sustainability programs at the libraries. From the smallest effort to the biggest effort, there's a lot going on around your state. And it's really, I think, just dovetails so very nicely what's going on around the planet with sustainability and climate goals. It's also clear to us from the research that we did that sustainability belongs in libraries. Core values is to care about our community that we serve, however you define the word community for your organization. And the core value of librarianship is to help people get what they need. Living sustainably is what people need at this time. And you all know that, otherwise you wouldn't be in this summit right now. I wanted to talk a little bit about the triple bottom line, or the 3 Ps, and that's the funky Venn diagram that's on the screen that you're looking at right now. So there are 3 Ps that you should be considering when you think about your first sustainability move, your next one, your biggest one, wherever you are with your library and your efforts. It's important to think about the people that you serve. As librarians, we're always thinking about the people that we serve. So that's an easy one to do. You have to think about your purse. So the budget matters, right? You need to have money in your budget. And from the previous presentation, we learned how you can stretch those dollars. And then we're also thinking about the planet. I want to add to that, in addition to the macro view of the planet and the health of this place that we live, there's also a more micro view of the health of your individual community. Each community is different and has different climate challenges. So obviously you're going to take those into account, and they sort of fit into what you're probably hearing from the people that you serve in your community. And it's really obvious to us, having done this background research, that y'all are already doing this, like I said. And those who aren't, many of those folks are ready to get started. So how do you get started? This is what the guide looks like. There's 3 categories to the guide, and they are community engagement, facility improvement, and operational transformation. And these categories came out of all of the listening that we did with folks. We're going to go into more depth on each of those 3 categories in just a moment: the community engagement, the facility improvement, and the operational transformation. But I want to talk about the level of entry, and I've been sort of foreshadowing that with you a little bit as I'm talking about, haven't started, want to start, want to do the next thing, want to do the big thing. So the guide breaks potential actions up into 3 levels of entry, like getting started, quick, easy, low-hanging fruit wins that probably don't cost you much money, if anything at all. The level 2 probably means more investment, and that's of staff time, perhaps community volunteer time, certainly potentially financial resources. And from that, you'll get sort of a more substantial return on your investment of time and money. For those of you who have already kind of done that, then it's time to start thinking about something big. Level 3 means that you're investing significant resources. And here, in what I've seen, it means devoting an entire staff position to sustainability for those of you who can do that for some of the bigger libraries. And it means thinking longer term for the library and for the community that you're in and that you're serving. So this really Level 3 stuff would be very big and very splashy, and probably more of the facility improvement stuff that might seem kind of pie in the sky right now, but might be a potential next step for other libraries. So throughout the guide, you will also find success stories. We talk to a lot of people who are doing really cool stuff, and it's just another sharing of ideas like you've been doing together today. We talk about the challenges that come up when making sustainability a primary focus of your library programs and services. And then we share additional resources that can help you move forward with this kind of programming. So I want to jump into those 3 topics. The first one was community engagement. This one is super close to my heart because this is what I do. I'm a community engagement specialist. And like I said, I was the one who had those listening sessions and the site visits and stuff. But you also need to be engaged with your community. I know many of you are, but for those of you who aren't and are looking for a way to get started, the guide can help you with that. If you're looking for a way to take the next step with your community, the guide can help you with that. The sort of guiding principle of the community engagement goal is to empower your community to engage in a more climate conscious way through public education and public consumptive behaviors. So you can see it's very outward facing. It means talking, having conversations, and listening closely. A really simple way to start with that is just to continue promoting use of the library. Libraries themselves are sustainable models, right? It's to think intentionally about new programs and services and materials that you introduce and offer to your community, and to keep sustainability and climate in the back of your mind when you're doing that. It's thinking strategically about strengthening existing partnerships or going after new partnerships. And this is with folks who also have a mission or a heart connection to sustainability programming and services in your community. It's creating resilience hubs, so helping each other continue to offer this programming and service level to your communities. It's talking about being that heating and cooling center, disaster center for the people that you serve, because obviously climate change is making this more of a role that libraries can take within their communities. And then it's also looking at patron transportation, like, are you on a bus line? Are you on a bike trail near a hiking trail? That kind of thing. So you can see how it sort of progresses from promote library use. Yeah, we can do that, all the way down to figuring out how people get to your bricks and mortar buildings. I want to take a pause for a moment and see if anyone has anything to share about community engagement that you're currently doing and want to sort of share that tip or idea with other folks in the summit right now. You can enter ideas into the chat, and Juliana and I will take a look at that. And I'm thinking, Juliana, that there's nothing there right now. Okay.
Not yet, Cindy.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just let me know when there is. So if anybody wants to share anything about what you do to engage your community with climate and sustainability in mind, please go ahead and share that. And I'll come back to those comments after I talk about our second big topic, which is facility improvement. We all know that we'd like to be in LEED certified, greenest of green buildings in just the right place in town. And we all know that that's not possible for everybody. You have what you have, and that's all you can do. What facility improvement is about, this topic is about ensuring that your library lowers your carbon footprint however you can do that, and that you help make progress toward the statewide and worldwide goals to reduce carbon footprints, and just start adapting your facilities to support those efforts. It doesn't mean go build a brand new library, because almost nobody can do that at this point. So we're talking about potentially doing an energy audit and potentially partnering with whoever you get your power and light from, who you get your water from, and see if they can do an audit of your bricks and mortar building, or do one of your own if that's not available to you. It's looking at the technology that you adopt, the technology that you already have, how you use it, how you make it available to the public, and making sure that it is as low emission as possible. It's looking at your HVAC in your building. It's looking at your water usage in your building. And do you have LED lights? Do you have motion sensor lights? There's all kinds of little fixes like that that you can look at to just make your existing building sort of retrofit into a sustainability format. And then you can also look at energy providers. For those of you who have alternatives in who you get energy from, and many of us don't, but if you do, if you have competing companies in your area, look at how they get their power. How do they generate their power? And be intentional in who you choose if you have a choice. Landscaping is something that I talked about an awful lot at the Murrieta Public Library, and shout out to anybody who I got to meet with there. Landscaping is like at least half of what their programming is, and it's looking at doing native landscaping, drought resistant planting, native plantings. It's just like we heard from the previous presentation. It's partnering with local native tribes to learn more about those native plantings, and just being open to updating your landscaping, perhaps partnering with your municipality to do that, perhaps partnering with community volunteers to do that. And then it's looking at transportation. And here, this is transportation of staff getting to your bricks and mortar building. In the previous one with community engagement, we talked about how your patrons get there. Look at how staff get there too. And again, this makes sense with like bus lines and bike trails, but is your library in a place that's truly bikeable from like a residential center? On the picture here, you see the kind of rental bikes. Are those available? Are there bike racks available? Making sure that you can give staff as low footprint as possible in how they get to your library. So I'm just checking the chat real quick, and it looks like I'm good to go on. So I want to make that same offer. If anyone has a shout out they want to do to a program or service that they have newly adopted or completely perfected in relation to retrofitting an existing building to be more sustainable, I would love to see that in the chat. From Ben, we have thank you for mentioning staff transit part. They've started to look at staff schedules, trying to reduce the number of days, miles that people need to come in. Kim says their city is getting staff a $600 discount on e-bikes. That is really cool. Part-time equals part-time staff. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, keep those ideas coming on community engagement, on facility improvement, and I'll review those after I talk about our third topic, which is operational transformations. So here is where we're asking you to, as this says here, cast a critical eye on your working policies, procedures, and everyday tasks. So it's just taking a step back from your day-to-day and looking at a more macro level at how you do what you do, your programs, your services, your materials acquisition. A good way to start with that is to survey the staff and kind of find out what they're up to and find out if they have ideas for how their particular task, department, job description might be able to be more sustainable and climate conscious. A next nice step after that is to create a staff working group. And for those of you in really small libraries, and I was a director of a very small library, a work group would have to be like 2 people because we just didn't have that many to choose from. But a pair of people is better than 1 person. So if you can even find a partner to bounce ideas off of on how you might make your library more sustainable, that's another really good place to start. Neither of those things costs anything, surveying staff or creating a work group. Look at your suppliers. Just like I talked about with the energy company, you can look at, do your suppliers value sustainability? Can you find anything on their website? Is it part of their mission? And that's a nice way to choose between suppliers if you have that financial flexibility to do so. And also, I kind of foreshadowed this too, developing a disaster preparedness plan. For this, the big thing that I heard when I talked to people was fire, fire, fire. And from there comes mud and water. And it's really making sure that you're ready to serve your community should disaster strike. Hopefully it doesn't, but it pays to be ready, to know how to help people so that your staff are ready to jump in when a library's help is needed in order to help a community survive disaster and recover from disaster. Recovery takes a long time. And then it's looking internally at your own policies, your strategic plans, and your kind of mission, vision, core values, the driving things that are at the core of what you offer your community through your organization. Policy updates, again, cost nothing and can be another really easy place to start. It's also a really lovely place to involve the board. And hopefully you have somebody on the board who's passionate about it and could be a partner with you and help move forward with reviewing your policies through a sustainability eye. All right, I want to take a look. Juliana, I'll invite you to read if there's anything. Oh, Juliana actually posted in the chat. She knows San Diego has a ton of EV chargers coming to public libraries soon. Yes, libraries are definitely making that move. And I will say I know of libraries that are also partnering with their local power companies, and the power companies provide those and they pay for them in some cases. So partnership, partnership, partnership. It's the way to move forward. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Juliana, from chat? I think I got everything there.
Yeah, it looks like you got everything there, Cindy. Just to follow up so everyone knows what's coming next. The guide will be posted and shared widely. We hope to be announcing both the 24 and 25 Sustainable California Libraries grantees and the public sharing of the guide in the next couple of weeks. So I think this is a really great wrap up and preview of sort of what's coming next. So I think you've covered everything, Cindy. Did you want to add anything else?
Oh, not at all. Just here's how to get in touch with Juliana in case you didn't know that. And just the only thing I want to say is keep sharing and inspiring each other and giving each other those ideas. It's really about that community that you create internally as well.
Thanks, Cindy. I'm gonna wonder if it's possible that, Angie, we share the thank you slide, and while you're pulling that up, and thank you for working the magic behind the scenes, I am going to say a huge thank to all of our presenters and panelists, both those who are still here and those who had to drop off the call because they probably had other work to do. Thank you to all of the attendees. I see some familiar names and some new names in chat. And we have a lot of resources and sharing that's going on, solutions sharing. One thing that I was not able to mention at the beginning, and I'm sorry, I apologize because we had to hurry and stay on time, the two photos that were featured, and Angie, if you're able to go back really quick to the first photo and just keep going, that one right there. Sorry, yeah, oop, one more forward. Yes, okay, this is Blanchard Library, and this is their Plastic Pollution and Solutions exhibit, and we did a tour, and there was a film viewing and a community discussion. I was able to attend that in person, which was super excited. Shout out to Brenda and team from Blanchard Library. And then Angie, if you could go forward one more slide. This is the, I think this was in Cindy's presentation too. This is the garden fair that was at the Vallejo Library that was part of Solano County's Sustainable California Libraries grant. And if you look in the background, you'll see some funny jokes. I really appreciate everyone being here today. Another huge thanks to Angie, thanks to Michelle, the grant monitor, thanks to all of our presenters, thanks to you for attending. And please do sign up for that Sustainable California Libraries listserv, open to anyone in California. Thank you, Angie. There's the main page, there's the resources page. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Please do continue connecting. And again, thanks, and do reach out if you have any questions. Juliana Robbins from the State Library. Thanks, everyone.